You think life is falling apart, but what if it's falling into place in a way you just can't see yet? What if all the confusion, the delays, the silence, the closed doors, what if none of it means failure and everything means formation? You're not being rejected, you're being redirected, not being punished but positioned. This isn't the part where you're tested to prove your worth. This is the part where you're refined to carry it. And I know, right now it feels like nothing's working. The things that used to feel secure suddenly feel shaky. The people who used to show up are now distant. Plans that once felt certain now feel like sand slipping through your fingers. And your mind wants to label it. Something must be wrong. I must have done something wrong. But pause. What if the only thing wrong is that you're still interpreting discomfort as danger? What if this is not collapse but construction? The universe doesn't need you to panic. It needs you to perceive differently. Because right now, you are being shaped. Every uncomfortable pause, every strange silence, every slow moment where you feel like you're standing still, those aren't setbacks, they're signals. Signals that something deeper is unfolding. You're not stuck, you're being rooted. And what's rooted may look hidden at first, but roots grow first, so the foundation doesn't fail later. You're being prepared in places no one can see, and that preparation is sacred. And then it happens. Everything slows down. You're no longer getting signs. The progress you used to see, it vanishes. You used to feel in sync. Now it feels like static, but that static isn't evidence of chaos. It's the echo of your old self losing grip. See, growth isn't always fire and momentum. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's space. Not emptiness, but recalibration. The universe has a strange way of answering you by taking things away before it gives. And this quiet, it's not a mistake. It's the quiet before the shift. The moment your system reboots, the moment your energy field reprograms itself to hold what you've been asking for. That silence is not absence. It's alignment in progress. You prayed for expansion, and now you're in the stretch. You called in transformation, and now you're in the undoing. The undoing of patterns, of illusions, of the parts of you that once kept you safe but can't carry you where you're going. It feels like you're being stripped. You are, but not because you're being broken, because you're being revealed. This is the sacred reset. The invisible phase where the old hasn't fully left and the new hasn't fully arrived. It's awkward, it's messy, it's unfamiliar. But that's how you know it's real. Transformation doesn't come with step-by-step instructions. It comes with surrender. It comes with uncertainty. It comes when you stop needing clarity and start choosing trust. Because the moment you can trust without proof, that's the moment the field listens. That's when the signal gets strong, not when you beg, not when you chase, but when you breathe, when you soften, when you say, "Even here I trust." That's not weakness, that's mastery. You're not being ignored, you're being upgraded, and upgrades don't come with guarantees, they come with faith. Let's talk about what happens right before your life expands. It rarely looks the way you think it will. It doesn't come with fireworks and certainty. It comes with endings, uncomfortable, unexpected, unexplainable endings. Relationships fade, plans dissolve, old versions of you begin to feel too tight, like a life you've outgrown but haven't fully left. And in that moment, it's easy to think something is going wrong. But what if nothing's wrong at all? What if things are just being cleared so you can finally receive what you've been asking for? You can't take old energy into a new chapter. You can't hold abundance with hands full of what no longer fits. And so the clearing begins, not as a punishment, but as a prerequisite. You lose what's misaligned, not because you're failing, but because you're finally resonating at a frequency that refuses to carry what can't follow you. It's the shedding phase, the deep, invisible clean-out. And it doesn't ask for your permission, it just starts. Suddenly, what you used to tolerate becomes unbearable. What once gave you comfort now feels suffocating. The jobs, the titles, the connections, the coping mechanisms, they begin to loosen their grip, not to hurt you, but to free you. You're being untangled from what isn't true, from what you agreed to just to survive. And yes, it feels disorienting. But that's the cost of becoming real, of coming home to yourself. You are not losing your life. You are losing the illusions that kept you small, the beliefs that said you weren't ready yet, the attachments that masked your fear as ambition. You are not being stripped for punishment. You are being cleared for clarity. This is what the becoming feels like: raw, untamed, inconvenient, but necessary. Because the life you're stepping into can't be built on a foundation meant for someone you no longer are. So stop trying to glue it all back together. Let it fall. Let what's meant to leave, leave. Because every exit is also an opening. Every ending creates space. And that space may feel terrifying at first. But emptiness isn't a void. It's potential. And potential is powerful. Because it's where the new begins. Don't rush to fill it. Don't force yourself into the next thing just to avoid the discomfort of transition. Let yourself be in the clearing. Let yourself feel what it's asking you to release. And remind yourself, this is not destruction. This is alignment. It's the universe removing the noise so you can finally hear your own voice. And in the middle of all this shifting, here comes the pressure, the urge to figure it out, to control, to push. We've been trained to believe that pressure equals progress. That if you're not hustling, striving, climbing, then you're falling behind. But pressure isn't power, it's noise. And noise blocks clarity. When you're pushing from fear, the universe pauses, not to punish, but to protect. Because your energy is saying, I don't trust what's coming, so I need to force it now. But real alignment doesn't live in that energy. Real alignment is quiet, still, calm. It doesn't demand, it receives. And that's where so many people get stuck. Confusing effort with alignment, urgency with worth. You were taught to believe that rest is laziness, that surrender is weakness, that ease is unearned. But the truth is, when you are truly aligned, you don't have to prove anything. Your energy speaks before you do. Your presence draws in what you used to chase. You become magnetic, not because you're doing more, but because you're holding more trust. Because the field responds to frequency, not force. And that's the real shift, when you stop trying to earn your next level and start embodying it. Pressure will always whisper, you're behind. Alignment says, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Pressure will push you to act from panic. Alignment invites you to move from peace. And here's what most people never realize. When you finally stop grasping, the thing you've been chasing usually arrives. Not because you gave up, but because you let go of the version of you that believed you had to fight for it. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you believe you are. So if you want something new, you must become the person who can hold it without collapsing. And that becoming doesn't happen under pressure, it happens in presence. So take a breath, release the need to prove, release the need to be somewhere else. Right now, in this space between pressure and peace, something powerful is happening. You're being recalibrated, realigned, not tested, prepared. There's a strange space no one warns you about, a space between your old identity and the new one that's still being shaped. It's not dramatic like a breakthrough, it's subtle, quiet, confusing. It feels like being no one and everyone at once, like the things that used to define you. Your habits, your reactions, your sense of control, they just stop fitting, like clothes that shrank in the wash. And yet, the new version of you hasn't fully arrived either. You don't know how to act, how to think, how to move. Everything feels foreign. You're not who you were. You're not yet who you're becoming. This in-between space is where most people panic. They think something's broken. They rush to fix it. They try to go back to what's familiar, even if it kept them small. But this space isn't broken. It's sacred. It's the doorway, the passage, and it demands your presence more than your performance. What's happening here is identity death and birth, the death of the self that operated through survival, through overthinking, through control, the self that believed safety came from knowing, from planning, from force. That part of you is dissolving, not because it was bad, but because it was limited. It got you here, but it cannot take you further. And the part of you that's coming alive, that part doesn't need control to feel safe. It doesn't panic in uncertainty. It trusts the unseen. It recognizes that alignment doesn't always feel comfortable, but it always feels true. And in this gap between identities, your nervous system is rewiring. Your emotional patterns are loosening. Your coping mechanisms are being exposed, not to shame you, but to free you. You're learning to be without the masks, without the roles, without the urgency to explain yourself. That's why it feels so raw. Because for once, you're not performing. You're just existing. And existing, without validation, without certainty, without external proof, takes a level of inner strength that only this phase can build. It's a quiet kind of power, one that doesn't shout, one that doesn't need to be seen to feel real. And the discomfort? That's not your cue to run. That's your invitation to stay, to witness yourself in the in-between, to allow the shedding without needing to rush the becoming. You are being reborn in slow motion, and it's not supposed to feel graceful. It's supposed to feel like undoing, like remembering, like rewriting the story of who you thought you had to be. So if it feels messy, good. It means the old is leaving. It means you're making space for something truer. The caterpillar doesn't emerge halfway and fly. It melts, disintegrates, becomes unrecognizable before it transforms. That's what you're in. That's why it feels unfamiliar. Not because you're lost, but because you're closer than you've ever been. And now comes the rebuild, not from effort, but from essence, from the ground of who you actually are, beneath the pressure, beneath the patterning, beneath the noise. You've been dismantled, not because life is cruel, but because truth is precise. And now, piece by piece, you begin to reconstruct. But this time, with intention. This time, without the weight of pretending. This time, not to impress, but to align. You start to notice what no longer fits. The old goals don't excite you. The old relationships feel one-sided. The old routines feel empty. That's not apathy, it's clarity. You are tuning your frequency to match a new future. One that's not built from survival, but from sovereignty. And here's the shift. The new version of you doesn't need to prove anything. They don't chase, they attract. They don't shrink to fit, they expand to meet. And that expansion doesn't come from force. It comes from coherence, from alignment so deep it becomes unshakable. The rebuild is not about becoming someone better. It's about becoming someone truer, someone who doesn't outsource their worth, someone who doesn't perform their value, someone who doesn't panic in silence but listens through it. This is not a motivational cliche. This is transformation in real time. It's gritty, it's subtle, it's quiet, but it's yours. You're not rebuilding for the world. You're rebuilding for the reality that already knows who you are, the one that's been waiting for you to meet it. So start from your center, start from the stillness, start from the version of you that doesn't beg for signs, but becomes one, the version that doesn't grasp, but anchors, that doesn't hustle, but holds. Because when that version becomes steady, the universe doesn't have to test you, it just reflects you. The people who need to leave, leave. The things that aren't aligned fall away, not because you pushed them, but because your energy no longer permits what isn't true. That's the rebuild, not in noise, in resonance, in quiet, deep, unapologetic truth. You keep asking for a sign. You keep looking outside yourself for a signal that it's working, that you're on the right path, that it's safe to keep going. But what if I told you the sign isn't coming because you don't need one? Because the real sign, the only one that matters, is you. The way you still show up even when no one is clapping. The way you keep choosing trust in the middle of silence. The way you breathe through the doubt, soften through the fear, and keep walking through the fog even when the destination hasn't revealed itself. That is the sign. That's the signal that you've shifted, that you're not chasing a life anymore. You're embodying it. You're not hoping it finds you. You're becoming the space where it already exists. And here's the truth no one teaches. Manifestation isn't about wanting something hard enough or asking for it the right way. It's about coherence. It's about energetic alignment. You attract what your nervous system believes is safe to receive. So if you're constantly scanning for proof, asking if it's working, demanding a sign, you're signaling doubt. You're telling the universe, I don't trust that it's mine until I see it. But the quantum doesn't respond to doubt dressed in affirmation. It responds to the frequency underneath. And the most magnetic frequency you can emit is presence. The moment you stop looking for the thing and start living like it's already here, everything starts to move. So stop searching for evidence. Start being the evidence. Start moving as the person who already has what they've asked for. Not to trick the universe, but to tune into the version of you that isn't waiting anymore. The version of you who doesn't need signs to feel secure, who doesn't need external validation to feel aligned, who doesn't pray for a future while abandoning the present. Because here's what changes everything. When your internal world stabilizes, your external world follows. When your energy becomes consistent, reality starts to rearrange. Not out of luck, not out of chance, but because coherence is the language the field listens to. So if you're tired of asking when it's coming, flip the script. Ask instead, what am I still holding on to that doesn't match what I say I want? Ask, where am I doubting myself when I should be anchoring deeper? Because your next level isn't waiting to be found, it's waiting to be allowed. And allowing doesn't mean sitting around passively hoping something changes. It means living today like you already know it has. That's not delusion, that's alignment, that's trust in motion. And that's when the universe begins to echo what you already know inside. It's done. It's always been done. Now you're just matching it. But still, somewhere inside, that voice creeps in, the one that says this must be a test, that all these delays and disruptions are here to measure your strength, that maybe the universe is waiting to see if you'll fail, that maybe, just maybe, you're being punished. But let's get something clear once and for all. This is not a test, this is a transition. The universe is not trying to prove your worth. It already knows your worth. It's not asking for proof that you're strong enough. It's asking for truth, your truth. The truth of who you're becoming, the truth of what you're willing to release, the truth of how you respond when everything is uncertain. Because uncertainty doesn't mean something's wrong, it means something's changing. It means the structures that were built on the old you are starting to dissolve, not to break you, but to reveal you. Think about it. Every time you raise your vibration, everything that doesn't match that new frequency begins to fall away. Not as punishment, as preparation, the people who ghost you, the plans that collapse, the things that suddenly don't feel aligned. That's not rejection, that's response. That's the quantum field saying, okay, I hear you, let me make space. But space feels like loss when we don't understand it, so we panic, we resist, we assume the worst. When in reality, the very chaos we're trying to avoid is the beginning of the new order we asked for. You're not being tested, you're being realigned. And realignment requires release. Release of control, of timelines, of old roles you played to feel safe. And here's the hardest part. It doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like nothing is happening. Sometimes it feels like regression, like confusion, like failure. But those feelings are not indicators of truth. They're symptoms of recalibration, of your nervous system catching up to your new vibration. Because this isn't about intellectual knowing, it's about energetic readiness. Can you hold the frequency of trust when there's no evidence to support it? Can you let go of the narrative that says discomfort means danger and start interpreting it as a sign that you're expanding? That's the shift. That's the evolution. That's when the field doesn't just mirror your words, it mirrors your being. So no, this is not a test. This is the stretch before the arrival. This is the tension before the breakthrough. This is the version of you that knows it's coming, who can feel it in your bones, even when your mind wants to panic. And that version of you? That version is the one the universe responds to, not because you begged, not because you proved anything, but because you finally stopped pretending, because you surrendered without giving up, because you released the outcome and became the frequency. That's not a test, that's transformation, and it's already unfolding. You've been taught that power looks like control, like knowing all the answers, having a plan, making things happen. But real power is much quieter. It's not in how fast you can move, but how still you can stay when everything around you feels uncertain. It's not in how much you can force, but in how deeply you can trust. Trust isn't passive, it's not weakness. It's choosing alignment over anxiety, choosing presence over panic, choosing to believe in the unseen, even when the visible tells a different story. You don't build trust by everything going right. You build it when things feel wrong and you keep your center anyway. When the ground shakes and you don't run, when you don't have proof, but you still act from knowing. That's when your energy shifts from reactive to anchored. That's when the universe knows you're not just speaking the vibration, you've become it. And maybe no one told you this, but trust isn't always a feeling. Sometimes it's a decision you make in the dark. You decide to trust even when your emotions haven't caught up. You decide to keep walking even when the path disappears. You trust, not because everything makes sense, but because you know who you're becoming. And you know that version of you doesn't need to micromanage the miracle. They don't shrink in waiting. They expand, because the wait is not empty. It's not a delay. It's a training ground. It's where you learn to hold more without chasing it, to breathe deeper without needing to know what's next, to sit inside the silence without trying to escape it. That's where your nervous system calibrates. That's where you stop leaking power. That's where you shift from asking to receiving, because you finally believe you're worthy of receiving without earning it. You've been prepared, not punished, and preparation is precise. You're being shaped, not for a temporary breakthrough, but for sustained alignment. You're not being taught how to grab life. You're being taught how to hold it without collapsing. That's a different level. That's not motivation. That's embodiment. And embodiment doesn't happen in the moment things arrive. It happens in the moments when they haven't yet, and you choose to act like they already have. That's not pretending. That's alignment in its purest form. Because when you believe you're already in the frequency, you no longer beg reality to catch up. You invite it with ease. So now you're here. After the shedding, after the silence, after the stretching, and it's easy to look around and wonder, why hasn't it happened yet? But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the real question is, am I living like it already has? Because the final piece isn't about doing more, it's about being more still, being more present, being more available to what's trying to land. The universe doesn't need your panic, it needs your presence. It doesn't need you to hustle, it needs you to embody, because it's already listening, it's already responding, and what you're calling in, it's already on its way. It's just looking for a home that can hold it. This is the moment you stop chasing. This is the moment you stop asking when it will come. This is the moment you realize you've already become the person who holds it. You've already shifted. You've already aligned. The clearing wasn't punishment. The silence wasn't punishment. The in-between wasn't punishment. It was all preparation. Every moment of stillness that made you doubt your path was a moment of quiet construction. Every person who left was an act of space-making. Every breakdown was a breakthrough dressed in disguise. You didn't lose anything. You gained space. Space for what actually matches you. Space for what won't require you to shrink. Space for what feels like home, not like effort. You're not being tested, you never were. You're being trusted to walk through uncertainty and stay rooted in truth. Trusted to hold the frequency when there's nothing yet to hold. Trusted to carry the version of you that doesn't need proof to feel powerful. You are not behind. You are not off track. You are not waiting for your life to begin. You are living the most sacred part of it right now. The part where you're no longer who you were and not yet who you're becoming, but fully aware that both are dissolving so the real you can finally emerge. So if it feels like nothing's happening, remember, seeds do their best work underground. Roots grow in the dark before anything ever blooms. And you've been growing deeper this whole time, quietly, powerfully, invisibly, until now. Because now you are ready. Not because it's easy, not because you know exactly what comes next, but because your energy says, I trust what I cannot see. I trust who I am becoming. I trust that what's meant for me is already finding me, not because I forced it, but because I stopped resisting who I really am. And that moment right there, that's the arrival.